Donald Trump's national polling lead has expanded to a whopping 3.3%, his largest margin since January of this year. In this video, I will be updating my 2024 electoral map prediction as a result of Trump's post-debate gains. We will begin by filling in the solid states for both candidates, states that either Biden or Trump will win by margins of 12 percentage points or more. For the incumbent president, we have Washington and California on the West Coast, as well as Hawaii, Illinois, the state of Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, his home state of Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. 131 electoral votes for Joe Biden, quite a fall from the 183 he won by safe margins in 2020. As for Donald Trump, we have the states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Alaska, the entirety of Nebraska, with the exception of the 2nd District, as well as Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, the 2nd District of Maine, and the states of Iowa and Ohio, 2 states that Trump carried by 8 points in 2020 and by even larger margins in 2016. And before we fill in the likely states, only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And along with that, follow me on Twitter, link in the description below. And now we're going to get into some of the more hotly contested races, starting off with the likely states that will vote for either candidate by margins between 5 and 12 percentage points. These states are going to be more competitive, but one candidate does still maintain an edge. Starting off with the likely states for Biden, we have Oregon, 8 electoral votes. The state was only likely for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in 2012. In 2024, Biden's probably not going to win it by a solid margin. We saw the governor's election here in 2022 get into the single-digit range. So Oregon is still a blue state, but not as solid as some people may think. Next up, we have the state of Colorado, 10 electoral votes. This is going to be a pretty sharp drop for Biden. He only leads by 6 points in the polling right now, and this is from polls conducted all the way back early this year when he was actually performing much better than he is right now. If we took a poll in Colorado at this very moment, the margin for Biden would probably be quite a bit worse. We also have the states of New York and New Jersey, 2 states where the Democrats' public image has just been absolutely destroyed in. If you look at the Empire State, Biden leads by just 7.5%, and this is not just 2 polls. If you look at any recent poll that's been conducted since October of last year, Joe Biden has not managed to win by a margin over 12% even once. New York is going to be competitive this election. The margin is going to fall by at least half for Biden from 23 points 4 years ago. While in New Jersey, the only poll we have shows Biden ahead by 7. Bob Menendez's corruption convictions have definitely not helped the Democrats here, and so that is why it is going to be significantly more competitive. And so this puts Biden at 191 electoral votes. For Trump, we only have 2 likely states, but they are going to be 2 big prizes, Texas and Florida, 2 must-win states for the former president, a combined 70 electoral votes across the 2 states, and you can see here, these 2 victories instantly propel the former president to 219 electoral votes. These are 2 states that Trump has performed pretty well in the last 2 elections. In 2020, Trump won Texas by 6%, which you could argue isn't the best performance, but it is a state that has been generally shifting to the left. In 2016, though, he was able to win the Lone Star State by 9 points. That's probably the margin we're going to see in Texas this time around, while Florida has been red in both elections Trump has been a part of, despite voting for Barack Obama in both 2008 and 2012. So Florida really is a state that has taken a very sharp turn to the right over the last few years. We saw both Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis get elected by solid margins in 2022, and we're probably going to see Rick Scott, the incumbent senator there, perform very well in the 2024 Senate race in the Sunshine State, as well as for Donald Trump. They're probably going to win both by likely margins. On the presidential level, Florida is still going to be slightly more competitive than it was for Ron DeSantis in the governor's election. So with the likely states and solid states filled in for both candidates. Trump leads 219-191. Next up, we have the lean states. Now, this is where things really start to get very close. I mean, a lean state for Joe Biden, let's just say New Mexico, for example, this is a state that could potentially vote for Donald Trump. We're getting to the region where upsets are definitely possible, but one candidate right now, at least on paper, still maintains an edge. So starting off with New Mexico, we're going to begin with the Biden lean states, and we do have the state of New Mexico, 5 electoral votes. It voted for the now incumbent president by 11 points in the last election. That margin is going to be cut by in half and then some. If you look at the current polling from the state, yes, Biden is doing relatively well, but most of these polls are pretty old, and we are starting to see the Latino vote shift significantly away from the Democratic Party. In fact, Hillary Clinton did better among Latinos in Florida than Joe Biden in 2020. And as this trend continues, New Mexico is only going to get more competitive. The last time a Republican won this state was George W. Bush 20 years ago. Now, Donald Trump certainly does have a chance at flipping it, although right now, Biden still maintains a very slight edge. And the other lean state on this map for Biden is the state of Maine, a state that was very close in 2016, surprisingly competitive. Hillary Clinton only won the state by less than 3 points, while in 2012, this was a solid Obama state, a 15-point margin. In 2020, Biden was able to bring that margin back up a little bit, winning it by 9.1%, although it is going to fall once again in 2024, probably to around the margin we saw for Hillary Clinton, although it can definitely get even more competitive than that. The most recent poll from Maine actually shows Trump leading by 6%, although we still have a lot of undecided voters right now. In the end, Biden is still likely to be favored, but it can definitely get close, and I wouldn't rule Trump out from a potential victory here. And so this puts Biden at just under 200 electoral votes, which is pretty concerning because we haven't even gotten to the lean Trump states yet, and there really are quite a few of them. We're going to begin with the 2nd District of Nebraska, just 1 electoral vote. Trump won it in 2016 and then lost it in 2020, but with redistricting favoring Republicans here and Trump's rise in the polls, it is pretty likely that Trump is going to win back the region. Now we have 6 more lean Republican states to go over. We're going to begin with 4 in the Rust Belt, starting off with Nevada, 6 electoral votes. This is probably one of the most obvious flips for the former president. Looking at the polling average, Trump actually leads by 5.2%. Looking at how the numbers have changed over the last few months, Trump has been ahead throughout basically the entirety of the election cycle, and we saw that right before the debate on June 27th, Biden's numbers actually rose, and he was only behind by 3 points. Since then, though, his support here has absolutely collapsed. He is now behind by 5.2%. That's the impact that this debate has had. And so Biden's performance is really going to hinder his electoral chances in Nevada, a state that Trump has never won before, is very much on track to becoming a red state, a state that Republicans haven't won since the election of 2004. Next up, in neighboring Arizona, this was a state Trump carried in 2016 by 4 points. He then lost it by a very small 0.3% margin in 2020. And looking at the polling now, Trump is doing even better in Arizona than in Nevada. He leads by 5.4% statewide. And looking at the polling average and the polls that we've had over the last few months, there are only 2 polls throughout the entirety of the 2024 cycle that have shown Joe Biden to be ahead, and they were conducted very early in 2023. So basically, throughout nearly all of last year and this year so far, Trump has led in the state of Arizona. Looking at the polling average, it just has been getting worse and worse for the incumbent president. Trump is now leading by basically his largest margin ever. So there's no doubt that the state of Arizona is going to flip back to being Republican. Even if Joe Biden somehow wins the election, I don't see a pathway where he carries Arizona for a second time. We also have the state of North Carolina, 16 electoral votes, the Tar Heel state. Out of all of the lean Trump states, North Carolina is the one with the highest chance of falling into the likely category. There is a good chance that he wins the state by more than 5 percentage points. Now, in 2020, North Carolina was very close, but it is out of all of the lean Trump states this time around that Trump actually won in 2020. 1.3% was the margin. In 2016, Trump carried it by 3.7. And we're probably going to see a return to a margin even greater than what we saw in 2016. Trump leads by 6 points in the state as a whole, and looking at the polling average, I mean, things just aren't getting any better for Biden. Trump's lead continues to expand as time goes on. The Tar Heel state will be very firmly in the lean Republican category. And in Georgia, 16 electoral votes. This is another big win for Biden from 4 years ago. 0.24%. This was the closest state in the entire election, but today, Biden's support here has basically vanished. 4 points in favor of Trump. That's what the polling average is saying. And looking at all the polls we've had over the last year, barely any of them, and these are from a pretty long while back, basically none of the most recent polls show Biden even remotely competitive, despite having carried the Peach State in just the last election. And up in the Midwest, we have 2 more lean GOP states, starting off with Wisconsin. This one's probably the most obvious. Trump actually won Wisconsin by a larger margin in 2016 than Joe Biden in 2020. Out of the 3 blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin has always been the most conservative, and it is the only one right now with even a single Republican senator. That, of course, is Ron Johnson, who was reelected in 2022. And looking at the polling average here, Trump leads by 2.2%. This is by no means a state that Trump actually really needs to win, but his lead in it has expanded since the debate. As you can see here, June 27th, that was the day of the debate. We had a tie in Wisconsin. Now Trump's margin has risen to 2.2%, and on our map, it is going to be in the lean Republican category. And the final lean state on this map is the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. 19 electoral votes. This is going to be a gut punch for Joe Biden. This is a must-win state for the incumbent president. Its 19 electoral votes are simply too valuable, and to add insult to injury, this is actually Joe Biden's birth state. So looking at the polling in Pennsylvania, Trump currently leads by 5.3%. A state that Joe Biden won by a lean margin last time is now polling within the likely range for Donald Trump. And just look at what's happened since the debate. On debate night, Trump still led by 2.8%. Now his margin has virtually doubled. Trump has never performed better in Pennsylvania than he is right now. And so with the final lean state on our map filled in, Trump rockets up to nearly 300 electoral votes. We're now left with just 4 more states, and these are going to be the tilt states decided by margins less than 1%. These states really could go both ways, but for the sake of filling in this map, I'm going to give a slight advantage to either one candidate. And starting off with the tilt Biden states, we have Virginia, 13 electoral votes. This state voted for Biden by 10 points in 2020, but since then, it's gotten increasingly competitive. They elected a Republican governor in 2021, and the 2 most recent polls from the Commonwealth of Virginia show a tie. The last poll Biden was ahead in was conducted all the way back in December of last year. Virginia is going to go down to the wire this November, no matter how solid it was for Biden just 4 years ago. In 2016, Hillary Clinton, who ran with Tim Kaine, the sitting senator from Virginia, only won Virginia by 5.3%. So Democrats aren't as strong here as people may think. And the final state to go to Joe Biden on this electoral map is going to be New Hampshire. 4 electoral votes. This state can get very, very close. The most recent poll actually shows Donald Trump leading by 2%. And if you look at 2016, Hillary Clinton came very close to losing it, despite Biden performing pretty well in 2020, carrying the Granite State by over 7 points. So it can definitely go both ways, but for right now, I'm going to give Biden the benefit of the doubt in Virginia as well, and place them into the tilt Democratic categories. And finally, for Donald Trump, Minnesota and Michigan are left. Michigan is going to go into the Trump category, 15 electoral votes. Trump leads by 0.6%. If we look at the polling, yes, Trump is not doing as well as he was earlier this year, but this is by no means a state Trump really needs to worry about. There's no scenario where if Trump loses Michigan, he's going to lose the election. This is not a must-win state, but even then, he is leading in the polling and in a state that really overestimated Biden's support 4 years ago. So Michigan, the Wolverine state, is going to fall into the tilt GOP column. And finally, in Minnesota, 10 electoral votes. This is the state with the longest Democratic voting streak. It hasn't voted red since 1972, but Donald Trump could very well become the first Republican to win it in over half a century. Joe Biden may lead by 3 points in the polling average, but the most recent poll shows a tie, and Minnesota is a state that generally has been shifting to the right over the last few years with the rest of the Midwest. In fact, Hillary Clinton came within 2 points of losing it in 2016, and so with Trump being a top performer in the Midwestern region, I mean, just look at the difference from 2012 to 2016. Donald Trump really did a lot to help Republicans here, and that is why I have Minnesota in the tilt GOP category. And so with all of these states filled in, we have 323 electoral votes for Donald Trump to 215 for Joe Biden. Many states are in play, states that you typically wouldn't think of to be competitive because Biden won them by such large margins in 2020. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who you think will win between Biden and Trump, and subscribe to my channel right now for more content like this, and follow me on Twitter, link in the description below.